Welcome to IAS project. In this video, we will talk about political organization that was existing during early Vedic period. So we know early Vedic period started around 1500 BCE and it lasted up to 1000 BCE. Vedic period polity was a tribal polity. It simply means that the loyalty of the people was towards the clan or towards the tribe. There was no concept of state or a country during this time. So basically, people identified themselves with their tribe. So the political organization during Rig Vedic period was somewhat like this. At the bottommost level, we have what is known as a kula. A kula is nothing but the basic unit of political organization during the early Vedic period. The simplest meaning of kula would be family, and the head of the family was called as kulapa. So we can say that kula was headed by kulapa, and kula was the basic unit of political organization during the early Vedic period. Just above kula, we have what is known as grama, and grama was headed by a gramini. When several kulas came together, then they formed a grama. These kulas or these families came together on the basis of kinship. Kinship means that these families were either related by blood or they were related by marriage. This is the meaning of the word kinship. So several families who were sharing the same kinship came together and formed a grama. At this point, we must note that initially grama did not mean a village. So initially grama only meant a fighting horde. A fighting horde is simply a group of fighting men. Aryans were initially semi-nomadic people. Semi-nomadic means they were not staying at any place for longer durations of time, because these people were mainly cattle herders. That is why whenever the grass was depleted in an area, they moved along with their cattle to another place. So Aryans were initially semi-nomadic people, but later Aryans also started to settle at different places. So by settling at different places, they built settlements. When these settlements grew larger, they started to be called as villages. So only then the word grama started to mean village. So initially grama only meant a group of fighting men or a fighting horde. But later when Aryans settled, grama also started to mean village. So here I am going to write grama as a village. And this grama was headed by a gramini. So we can say that gramini was nothing but the leader of the grama or the leader of the village. Again, we must note the same point. Gramini was initially the head of a fighting horde. Fighting horde means a small fighting tribal unit. However, when these Aryans started to settle in villages, Gramini also became the head of the village. So the most basic unit was kula, which is nothing but family, and kula was headed by kulapa. We know that the Aryans were a patriarchal society. Patriarchal society simply means that father is the head of the family, or a male member is the head of the family. That is why kulapa was a man. And above family, we have what is known as grama. Grama simply means village, and the village was headed by gramini. At the next level, what happened was a group of villages came together, and these group of villages formed what is known as vis or visu. Usually, the people in this group of villages belong to a single clan. That is why vis also usually meant a single clan. However, there is also one more meaning for the word vis. That is nothing but vis also meant common people. Actually, this is where the word Vaishya comes from. The origin of Vaishya was not that they were traders. The origin of Vaishyas was they were not Brahmins and they were also not Kshatriya. So the people who were not Brahmins and who were not Kshatriya were nothing but the common people, and those common people were called as vis. So Vaishya word also comes from the root vis. In some books, the word vis is given as wish. So please don't get confused. They all mean the same thing. And vis was headed by a person called vishayapati. In the next stage, what happened was many vis came together and they formed a jana. And this jana was headed by a person who was called as Raja or Rajan. Raja or Rajan simply means king. Since this is a tribal polity, we can also call Raja as chief. So one or more clans came together and they formed a jana. Jana means a tribe. As I told you, the polity of Rig Veda was a tribal polity. That is why the people associated themselves with their jana and they owed their loyalty also towards their jana. Jana simply means the tribe. So during the Rig Vedic society, jana was the highest political unit. What was the lowest political unit? It was nothing but kula. Kula was the most basic political unit, whereas jana was the highest political unit during Rig Vedic period. And jana was headed by rajan, who is nothing but the king. We can also call him as chief because this was basically a tribal polity. The most important duty of rajan was to protect the cattle, because cattle were considered as wealth during early Vedic period. That is why, since Raja was the protector of the cattle, he was also called as Gopa or Gopati. The literal meaning of Gopati is the protector of cows. That is why Raja is also called as Gopa or Gopati. From this also we can understand how important cattle were to the Aryans. So the various units of habitation during the early Vedic period were, at the topmost level we have jana, and just below jana we have vis, and below that we have a village or grama, and the most basic unit was kula, which was nothing but a family. There was another unit also which was called as gana. However, gana was not a unit of habitation. Gana was mainly a group of people, which is nothing but assembly or a troop. The importance of gana was mainly from military aspect. So we can say gana was a assembly or a troop of Aryan fighters. The leader of the gana was called as Ganapati. So let me sum this up very quickly. The most basic unit was nothing but kula or family, and the kula or family was headed by kulapa. Above kula we have grama or village, and it was headed by gramini. Above grama or village we have what is known as vis, and vis was headed by vishayapati. And above vis we have tribe, which is nothing but jana, and jana was headed by raja. Jana was the highest political unit that was existing during the Rig Vedic period. During the Rig Vedic period, there were several important tribal kingdoms. Four most important tribal kingdoms were Bharatas, Matsyas, Yadus and Purus. We have already talked about these people in our previous video. But briefly, let us look at the location of these tribes. We have Bharatas here, Purus over here, Yadus over here, and Matsyas were also located close to Yadus. If we look at the location, Bharatas were located between rivers Sutudri and river Yamuna. We know that river Sutudri is nothing but river Sutlej. We can also say that Bharatas actually settled on the upper reaches of Saraswati river. This is nothing but Saraswati river. And Saraswati river was the most important river for early Vedic people. That is why they called Saraswati river as Naditarna. Naditarna means the best of the rivers. So the Bharatas were living on the upper reaches of Naditarna or Saraswati, while the Purus were located at the lower reaches of Saraswati river. So even among these four tribes, I can say Bharatas was the most important tribe. That is why another name of India is nothing but Bharat. We can also call India as Bharatavarsha. As I have told you previously, within the Constitution of India, there are only two names for our country. They are nothing but India as well as Bharat. Article 1 of Indian Constitution says that India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. And who were Bharatas? Bharatas were early Vedic period tribes. So the head of the kingdom was called as Raja, and the kingdom itself was called as Jana. It was nothing but a tribe. There was also a queen during this period, and the chief queen was called as Mahisi or Mahishi. During the very initial years of Rigvedic period, what happened was Raja or Rajan was selected from within the clan. I am talking about the years very close to 1500 BCE or even before 1500 BCE. So during this time, there was no hereditary succession of Raja. Hereditary succession of Raja means that if there is a king, then the next king would be the son of this king. This is the meaning of hereditary succession. But before 1500 BCE and around 1500 BCE, Rajan was not selected by hereditary succession. Instead, he was selected by the clan people, or we can say he was elected by the clan people. We are not sure what is the exact term because most probably Aryans did not have a democracy. So it is best to use Rajan was selected from within the clan during the initial years of Rig Vedic period. However, eventually what happened was during the years of Rig Vedic period, the king's post became hereditary. When I say during Rig Vedic period, I am talking about the period between 1500 BCE and 1000 BCE. So slowly the king's post became hereditary. So the son of the king would be becoming the next king. In our previous video, we have talked about two important rulers of Bharata tribe. They were Divodasa and Sudas. So Sudas was actually the grandson of Divodasa. Since the king's post was hereditary, we can say that the Rig Vedic polity was also a monarchy. Monarchy means a single king or a single queen is the ruler. So the Rajan was the monarch. However, we must also notice that the Rajan was not the absolute monarch. Absolute monarch means he has all the powers. But Rajan was not the absolute monarch because this Rajan during Rig Vedic period was not having all the powers. Some of the powers were lying with tribal assemblies. For example, Sabha, Samiti. There were also some other tribal assemblies like Vidatha and Gana. So these tribal assemblies were also having some powers. That is why during the Rig Vedic period, Raja was not the absolute monarch. And these tribal assemblies played an important role in the governing of the tribe. We will talk about all these tribal assemblies when we deal with Society of Rigveda in the coming lectures. So the king was not an absolute monarch and tribal assemblies were also having some role in administration of the tribe. Moreover, the king was also receiving help from some other people. For example, king was being assisted by Purohita. Purohita simply means priest. And the king was also being assisted by Senani. Senani was the army commander during the Rig Vedic period. Moreover, there was another officer who was called as Vrajapati. Vrajapati was basically an officer who had authority over a large land or over a large pasture ground. Pasture ground is again very important for the purpose of rearing cattle. So we can say that Vrajapati was an important officer during Rig Vedic period because Aryans were mainly cattle rearing people. Vrajapati also had some other duties. For example, Vrajapati led the heads of fighting hordes as well as the heads of families into the battles. And these battles we know that they were mainly made for cattle. We know that heads of fighting hordes were nothing but gramini. Later, gramini also became the head of the village. But initially, gramini was basically head of the fighting people or the head of the fighting horde. And the heads of the families were simply called as kulapa. So this is about the monarchy that was existing during Rig Vedic period. But in case of some tribes, the king was being elected by tribal assemblies. For example, Samiti was electing the king. So in these tribal assemblies, there was no hereditary succession of king. So in these assemblies, tribal councils were playing a major role in governing the tribe. So we can say that during the Rig Vedic period, most of the tribes were having monarchy. However, in some of the tribes, the chief or the king was also being elected by the tribal assemblies. In such kind of tribes, the tribal councils or the tribal assemblies were playing an important role in the governing or the administration of the tribe. Now please try to answer this question. Which of the below accurately represents the political structure of early Vedic period from lower level to higher level? So you have to start at the basic unit and then you have to end up with the highest unit. 4 options have been given here. If you know the answer to this question, please comment in the comment section. Please like and subscribe. You can download this presentation from our Telegram channel IAS Project. The link for this channel is given in the description section below.